Hello, so something I get asked a lot is about augments and augment selection. So today we're going to be doing a tier list based on the silver augment. This is going to be part of a little mini series that I will roll out over the course of the next week, being the launch patch of the game. Talk about the different augments and some of the options that you could pick in the game and how they might impact your board. If you like my content, please make sure to like and subscribe. I do daily TFT guides. Sometimes these tier lists, I treat them more as for fun content, but I'm going to be going over best comps, things like Opener was released yesterday, but then I'm also going to be talking about comp specific things. So tomorrow's actually going to be a full guide on how to play Bilgewater with some video examples from some of my games, which can help you out, and that's going to continue for all of set 16 until we cover every aspect of it. Of course, let's start with the augments. So I want to go over silver augments. When I rank these, a lot of times it's not going to be it's strictly how strong an augment is in a particular spot. A lot of times I'm going to say how holistically good it is and how it can be widely applicable. The more widely applicable and often that I am taking an augment personally is the ones that I view to be higher tier, S tier in that regard. But anyways, let's go through them. Air Axiom. I think that's really good if you need combat. You gain this air hex. It usually appears in the back row. I think it has a little bit of variance on where it can appear, but a lot of times I find it's in one of the corners. But champions that are in that basically gain 25% attack speed and they sunder enemies. The sundering is 30% sundering, so if you don't know, that reduces armor. I think these are really solid. There's a lot of different versions of these axioms, but basically this allows you to not have to build towards an item that gives you sundering. So if you're playing around an AD comp in particular, this is going to allow you to optimize your items a little bit better, and it works to be a pretty good combat, especially early game. The attack speed is also nothing to sneer at, because 25% attack speed is also pretty good. But the sundering is the main effect for this. It allows you to skip making those sundering items and then cap out your board a little bit higher. I think it's a decent combat because of the attack speed in addition to the sundering. Next we have Artillery Barrage. These are the hero augments. I'm going to leave D tier as the unranked tier, by the way. Whenever I do these tier lists, if I'm really unsure about an augment or I haven't had first-hand experience with it that's very niche in particular, I usually put in D tier, and that's like, try at your own risk. Because I would never click this unless I had an insane rumble spot. But I don't think it's particularly great, personally, right? Basically with this one, you gain a rumble, and then if you have your rumble, he gains extra range. He basically looks like a backline carry. This is what you would call like a hero augment if you're new to playing TFT, and it really comes down to like how strong this is relative to like how strong the unit is, because basically you're trying to reroll to play around a 1-cost 3-star, and you're hoping that that unit basically carries you as they would like a stronger tank a lot of the time, because it's forcing you to play in a little bit of a weird or avant-garde kind of way. So personally, I haven't tried it. I haven't seen many people try it. I assume it's not very good because I saw it in beta, not on actual release, but in beta I saw it and it was really bad in the beta. Like in PBE, it was really bad. Person played it and they just lost every single fight. So I would avoid this unless I have an insane spot where I have like 5 or 6 rumbles. But either way, unranked, I actually don't know how strong it is. If you've tried it out and you think it's really strong, cool. I personally won't be trying it out, just because I don't like those type of things. Anyways, augmented power. Your next augment is 1 tier higher. I think this one's like a push it and ask for next type of beat, right? It's kind of like postponing your decision making. I put in B tier. In some cases, it can make a lot of sense. There are some prismatics and some gold augments that can really sway a fight. I think basically when you're clicking this, you're hoping that the next augment is going to be a prismatic. What you do know is, however, if you see augmented power, it does give you information that you know for sure the next augment isn't prismatic because it has to be upgraded. So it also gives the rest of your lobby a lot of information. So like if you see somebody with augmented power, you can plan around the fact that you know that the next augment's either gold or silver. And there's also augment tables, which you can use to actually deduce exactly which one it is if you want to know. But in general, this is okay if you're in a spot where you have a chance of hitting a prismatic. It could be okay to take, but that's usually like you take this as a last resort. I understand that some prismatics can win out, so that's why I put it in B tier, because there are some that are really crazy. Now, backup bow. After your team attacks 1,000 times, gain 2 more. This one I think is pretty solid. I put in A tier. There's a lot of these that are added to the set now, where it's basically you gain a copy of a component, and then if you do a certain quest, you gain 2 more copies of the same component. Bow is a very powerful item, right? Not only do you get a bow, which you can use to make any item you want, but 2 more bows essentially gives you a red buff, which is already a good item that provides anti-heal that you can make afterwards, or you can use those bows to make a multitude of items. Now, the times that I would take these, obviously, is if you already have a unit that has a good base attack speed, or you can use this to slam a bow item that is really impactful. 1,000 attacks is going to be pretty massive. to basically get through. If you think about it with like Gwinsu or like in general with like auto attackers, if you have a really strong auto attacker Gwinsu type of build, you should be able to get this to proc by the beginning of stage 4. So that's not super powerful because obviously for a silver you're just getting 1 component, but a silver that gives you 3 total components is pretty good. That's like around the same amount of components as a gold augment a lot of the time, right? Silver augments usually give you around 2 components or like 3 components in certain situations. So in this case it's 3 components with a little bit of a quest. I think it's well powerful for a silver. However, you need to have a spot that you actually have an auto attack. If you put this on any unit, I tried it today on like a gangplank for fun and it just didn't work at all. I didn't even cash it out by the time I ended up losing the game, right? It was just like an 8th for me, right? Stuff like that, you really need a unit that loves the bow items, and you want to maybe start with like a Gwinsu or something where you're just melting or doing a bunch of auto attacks in the first place. Think of this on like a Jinx, for example, or some other unit that like melts, because then you'll get those stacks and you can usually cash it out like 50 attacks in a round on average, getting towards what's it called, getting towards that 1,000 by the time you get to beginning of stage 4. Band of Thieves, I think this one's really solid. I'm actually going to put an A tier as well. These gloves are really good early game because a Thieves gloves is basically an item that gives you 2 completed items. Items, it doesn't matter what the items are, but a lot of times multiple items on a unit, they have a multiplicative effect that they stack on the unit and make them a lot stronger. So a lot of times when you're making items for a unit, you want to put as many items on the same unit as possible. Band of Thieves has a little bit of high roll, low roll, obviously. You can hit good items, you can hit bad items, that's the whole point of it. But in general, it is a relatively powerful thing that you can use to cheaply and efficiently itemize units. What makes it really good this set is that there's a lot of 5 cost and high cost units to play around. Because of that, the Thieves Guild gets a lot of value, because when you get to those endgame board scenarios, you're going to have a lot of really powerful units that putting any items on them is going to make a huge multiplicative effect where they're going to be extremely powerful and potent. Even if they're not necessarily the best items on the unit, because the units are so powerful, so tanky, so stat heavy, really powerful ults, any items are going to be good. So not only is this really good early game, the mid game is going to be a little bit like because you can roll bad items and it won't feel that good. But by the time you get to late game, 2 completed items on any of the 5 costs used to optimize your board is going to help out quite a bit. So it's definitely a good option this set. But of course, you need to make sure that you're you need to make sure that when you take it, you still have a board that can support the rest of like the stuff, right? Like I wouldn't take Thieves Gloves if I don't have a unit to put it on early game either, right? It's like, it has to make sense from your spot as well, similar to some of these other ones. Best Friends, I put this in B tier. This one is a team-wide stat buff, which is really good. You isolate your units in pairs, they gain attack speed and armor. Obviously, solid option. However, it only gives armor, so I usually check and I see if in my lobby they are predominantly AD or AP. So if they're mostly doing physical damage, or it looks like, you know, they're making like, you know, sword items and stuff like that, then I think this one's a little bit less value, and then I usually opt for something else if possible, right? It's still good, it's still solid. In certain spots it can be great, but like I said, I usually check that, right? I usually like do a count. I go through everybody's board and I say, okay, they look like mostly AD, mostly AD, mostly AD, AP, AD, AD. Okay, more than half are AD. Okay, we take Best Friends, we're good to go. Attack speed is also good on everybody. Helps caster units or AP units to cast, because attack speed just generates mana through the auto attacks, or just generates mana in general from just attacking. And then for melee units is good, keeps Omnivamp uptime, attack speed, they love it. And then obviously if you're an auto attacker or a unit that does damage from doing as many attacks as possible within a given amount of time, attack speed obviously helps out those ones. So the attack speed's great, not the highest amount, but the armor is something that you can use to gauge whether or not you want it. Big Friend, same thing. If you're playing a board with like a really tanky unit, this might grief your positioning a little bit. I find that it's a lot better with the 5 cost. I think you can get a lot of durability on your units, and 9% durability, pretty good. 9% durability is a noticeable number that will make your board a lot tankier. I think that Big Friend, you have the potential to cap really high. It could also be up here, just because like if you're playing around 5 cost, this can be very easy to proc. Pretty much every 5 cost in the game upgraded, even some of them at 1 star, are gonna proc the Big Friend value, so you can easily spread this on your entire board. But in general, in order to get actual value of it, it's not very good early game or mid game, because you might not be able to reach those thresholds unless you're playing like something like bruisers or HP scaling units. Boxing Lessons, your team gets 30 health for each ally that starts in the front row. This one I think is really solid. It really depends on your board. It could also be up here. I don't have the best experience. Like personally, I don't know the exact threshold. It's 200 HP basically to your entire board, because if you take a team planner, all of the units in your front row, there are 7 possible slots. So if you fill the front row with your particular comp, you're going to gain 210 HP. Now 210 HP to your whole board is pretty good. Now I put it in A tier, but I do think that it might not be A tier, it might be B tier. It's somewhere between these two, right? It's somewhere between situational, like B tier is like usually the ones where you can take them. They're sometimes good, sometimes bad. You have to think about it. And the A tier are like more like you can go wrong, but not really. It's like generally really good, and they're generally pretty strong. I think it's somewhere up here. Of course, 210 HP, like in my head, I feel like it's a lot. Like, there's a lot of augments in the past that would give around, like, 100 or 200 HP, and they were, like, broken. I don't see a lot of people clicking this, though. So, I don't know if it's just, like, a math thing, or if it's a me thing, personally. But I'm definitely going to try clicking it a little bit more often, because 200 HP a whole board seems pretty good. It might be, like, a little bit situational if you don't have enough frontline units. I think with certain boards, for example, with Freljord, it's a little bit awkward, because, obviously, you can't put everything in the front line very easily if you have to clump around your Freljord pin thing, right? So that's where it might be like a little bit more situational, and you might consider it more B tier, but I'll put it in A tier for now, and maybe we'll move it around later. Branching out, gain a random emblem. I find that emblems aren't that substantial, especially this set with a lot of the synergies. I put these ones here, personally. I think that, like, it's hard to say. Branching out, you gain a random emblem. This used to give you a Reforger. When it gave you a Reforger, I felt like it was really good. Nowadays that it doesn't give you a Reforger, I am a lot less commonly clicking it. Now, that's not to say that you can't click it, have a fun game. You can click it, it can give you direction early game. There's lots of reasons why you would want to take it. Me personally, I avoid it. The other version where you get a Reforger later is a little bit better, maybe, but at the same time, it's awkward because then you're already committed to a comp a lot of times. The problem with these ones is that they're very high risk, and I personally avoid them. Me personally, right? That's why they're in C tier. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm not saying that they're awful. It's not like you click it and you lose the game. But there is a chance you click it and you put yourself in a worse spot, or like a suboptimal spot where you have to like try and like pivot or make your stuff work with it, and then it could be really awkward. I personally don't like them, so I'm putting them over here. Like I said, if you click them every time for direction, that's fine. You can totally do that. If you're somebody who needs the direction and it gives you like a good idea and peace of mind, and then you could commit towards something, those are reasons for taking it. But in general, I don't think the emblems are important enough for this to be an impactful decision for me. Called Shot. This one is really good, by the way. I want to make it very clear. This one has the potential to be broken. So I want to put in B tier, but it's a little bit awkward to play around. So I'll read it out, and then we're going to move it to C tier. But I'm just going to leave it in B tier for a second so I can explain why it's good. But basically, Called Shot. You set your win streak to 4, and then you gain 4 gold. If you don't know, win streaking, you get more gold per turn. So with Called Shot, to get 4 gold from a silver, and then setting your win streak to 4, basically, I think if you win 2 to 3 rounds, 2 rounds for sure, sorry, 2 rounds minimum, or 3 rounds for sure, you already get way more than a silver's value in gold from like the win streak gold by setting your streak to 4. So if you have an opener where you have the potential to win streak, or you have the potential to win the next 1 or 2 rounds, then that's fine. Now, obviously, if somebody takes like a combat augment like Air Axiom or Band of Thieves, you are now fighting against boards that have a silver augment that is making them stronger. Meanwhile, you are taking an augment that is not making you stronger, but assuming that your board state, like the units that you have upgraded and the units that you bought, allow you to actually win. So because of that, it's actually hard to judge, because you could click Called Shot, look around and say, oh yeah, I'm stronger than everybody. Then, you know, a couple people click these things and you lose the next round because they found an upgrade in their shop right after they clicked Augment. They click Air Axiom or Band of Thieves and itemize their unit, and all of a sudden, even though you made a decision that seemed like it was correct to take this and like win streak with it, you just lose streak and then it's just bad. Now, the 4 gold is pretty good. It's still good. It's still alright. So what I would say is that it's a risky play. It is definitely has its use cases though, but I'm going to put in C tier because I think the use cases are less common. I think, you know, similarly, even though this gives you the econ to start, there's other things that give you econ, and if you already have a strong spot, you might be better to secure that strong spot by taking something that gives you some sort of combat power or makes your board actually stronger in order to be better. Caretakers. I'm going to put this in B tier. This is another one that gives you good direction. Now, the 2-cost champions, in my opinion, are pretty decent. reroll isn't a big thing, but there are a lot of these units that can find their ways onto final boards and can actually stabilize you. A big part of this set is making it to level 9, because like a lot of the 5 costs are really potent. But the journey to get to level 9 usually requires you to have some sort of high roll or decent spot in your early mid game where you can actually play around some of the units. With these units, there's actually a lot of them that are pretty good, right? The tank units are really solid. Like some units that could scale well later, like Cho'Gath even, could be really good if you play some synergies with him. Nico, obviously, Vi is like an instant win. She's just broken, right? And then you also have other units that kind of fit into different boards, right? Aphelios, really strong if you can upgrade him. Scion actually has a reroll line that can actually make this a lot more reliable and stable. You actually have some units like Yordle that can help you to cash out at tempo a little bit. Maybe they're not the strongest units, but at least Timo and what's her name? Tristana, they're pretty good in the mid game. What I'm trying to get at is, a lot of times with this in the past, you would take it to just like play a reroll 2 cost and then like reroll that unit. With this one, if you can reroll or slightly roll and find a couple copies and use that to stabilize you in your mid game, I do think it has a lot more of a use case, even though it might not be dedicated like a reroll style meta that you want to like reroll units. Maybe a lot of those get outcapped anyways, but at least this gives you the opportunity to play around a unit that you can upgrade, right? An upgraded 2-star 2 cost from a silver augment can help you out quite a bit. It's not the greatest of augments, it's obviously situationally good, but if you have something like a component start, or if you have a lot of item components, you can make flexible items. This can give you like, okay, here's a unit I have, I can build items for them, I push level 5, level 6, and then my mid game on stage 3, I now have an upgraded unit that I can just easily play around. And then if I want to reroll them to complete it, because I'm going to get the extra copies with Caretakers, I can complete that unit, use them as part of my final board, and then just push levels after that. Not have to roll on level 8, not have to roll really deeply later, and then just cap out with legendaries and use that as like a really strong mid-game tool. Carve a path. Okay, so this one I think is the same power level as backup bows. I think this one's a little bit more situational. Bows are much more flexible in general, and I think that the condition to proc it is a lot easier than Carve a path. This one I think the damage is a little bit high. I might be wrong, but it's based on your team doing physical damage. And I think with one damage dealer, even if you give them a lot of BF swords, unless they like really pump and you have a really powerful spot where you can actually get this damage dealt, sometimes I find that this one takes a little bit longer to proc and it can be a little bit more awkward. Now, ideally with any of these types of gain a component and then gain 2 more later by doing mini quest, you want them to unlock by stage 4. Stage 4 is where you have your huge power spikes. It's where a lot of people get their final augment. Well, sorry, where everybody gets their final augment. And it's where a lot of people invest into their final strategy of how they're going to get their placements, right? It's like at that point you decide, am I rolling on 8? Am I going 9? Am I playing a reroll or finalizing my reroll lines? That's where everybody spikes. So you need to have this cash out towards beginning of stage 4, or else by the time you get this, it's like too little too late almost, right? You already have to slam your items, you already have to play around your units, and you'll be in a bad spot. I find that the 65,000 damage takes a little bit too long. Now, sometimes it's good if you have a really dominant path to success, right? Like, you know, for example, you have a Bilgewater opener with like a Gangplank, and then you just slam your BF sword. I'm like, yeah, he does like 1 billion damage because he's like really good right now. Like, yes, that makes sense here. But what I mean is like, it's a little bit more situational, because I think this one needs a little bit more support, and it's also like more specific in that it's building around sword items. Bow items are just more flexible, so I think that one also is a reason for the division there. Celestial Blessing, Omnivamp, and then you get extra shield. I think this one's okay. The extra shield isn't that crazy unless you have like a giga carry. I think if you're playing around units that like Omnivamp or want Omnivamp, it's fine. This can also give your backline some survivability, because if you give everybody Omnivamp, if you're worried about your backline getting sniped, you know, think like, you know, Mel's and Fizzes and Dianas and just like AoE damage. This can actually give your board a little bit of survivability, make it a little bit harder to chew through. So it's definitely an option to consider for sure. Chaotic Evolution, I think this one gives way too many stats. The problem is there's not many reroll lines right now, so I'm not sure if it fits into A tier or not. I'm gonna be honest, but this actually gives, like, for the thing, I think it's semi-tailored, by the way, but the stats that this gives for a silver, even if you're not rerolling, just upgrading a unit from 1-star to 2-star, it actually gives a decent chunk of change. Now, it's better if you're playing a 3-star unit, obviously, so I'm going to put it on B tier, just because it's a little bit worse than it was last set, because there's not many reroll lines that are considered to be really strong or really dominant right now. Of course, if you're playing like a Bard line, this is a lot better, but I think this one I would definitely think a little bit more about. This one's one that's slept on. I think it's very strong in the stats that it gives, but it's not necessarily like the strongest. Component buffet. You gain a random component. I put this in B tier. I think component buffet is really good. Whenever you gain a component, you can then get a component anvil. Now, this is like, excuse me, a little bit better of a version than like, how do I phrase it? It's kind of like a nice Pandora's-ish kind of item, where you're basically tailoring your items to be like BIS, or the best items that you want. I think this helps you to not low roll your items, but I don't think it's essential to anybody's game. So I don't want to put in A tier or S tier. Now, a lot of people differ in opinions on this, and some people think that it's really, really broken. Some people think it's really, really useless. The way I look at it is that it gives me one component. For a silver, I want 2 components or 3 components, because there's other silver augments that give me 2 or 3 components. This allows me to make sure that my components are really good, so I don't low roll on my components. But as you get better at TFT and you understand how item drops work and you play around the items, this is something that starts to matter for me less and less. Now, if it's a very, very degenerate meta, like a reroll meta, for example, Component Buffet is a lot better. Last set, on set 15, Component Buffet was really good. Why was it really good last set? Because last set, you had specific units that required specific items to work with specific, power-up fruits, right? That was a big aspect of set 15. I don't think this set, the components matter that much. I think a lot of set 15 is flexing around the units that you can find and the boards you can find, and then making it to a good enough level or a good enough stability that you can make it to 5 costs. So I think a lot of the way that you slam items and the way that you create your items is focused a lot more on playing your strongest and toughest units at the current state in the game, and then worrying about like perfect items and other stuff later. You never even consider it. You kind of just like build your good items on the units you have right in front of you, make sure that you save your HP, save your gold, win streak, have the ability to then use those resources to make it to 5 costs, and then cap out around the 5 costs with the items that you ended up in the game anyways, right? Which evolves your strategy and allows you to flex. That's why I put in B tier. In certain cases, I think it will be really strong. Obviously, if you have no other option, this helps you to make really good items and be strong early, but I don't think it's an essential thing, and it's not something I'm going to click instantly if I have an option for another augment that makes me stronger at the given moment, or gives me better resources to make it to that end game scenario. Continuous conjuration. This one I put in the same tier as the Carve path. It's the same idea. If you have units that do a lot of AP damage and you have a board that can support it, this is really good. I feel like the damage is a little bit high, and obviously rods a lot less flexible than bows, so situational on if you're actually playing around the AP units and need these particular bow items, or sorry, these rod items. But I think this one I think is a little bit easier than Carve path. But Carve path, it's hard to judge because it's your whole team, so you don't have to think about just the carry, it's also the auxiliary units on your team, and auto attacking is more common. Like, all the units are going to auto attack, even without items, they do AD damage. This one's more related to like APs and ults, which is a little bit more awkward. This one I actually saw do really well with, I think it did really well one time. Somebody took it with Otacon. They took it with like a Noxus opener, and they play like LeBlanc with Otacon. They cashed it out pretty easily because Otacon does AP damage, and the number is lower for this, so it actually like scaled really well. Because like if you have 5 Noxus in, he just like kind of shreds a little bit. Like he kind of melts people. Now that's like very specific. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I wouldn't say like, oh, that's secret tech or anything. There's obviously other variations of this that you can do with other boards as well, but I'm just saying that like stuff like that might help you a little bit. Corrosion. This reduces armor for the first 2 rows, right? Every 2 seconds. This is good. It's like flat armor reduction, so it's not like percentage shred sunder. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. A lot of times it stacks really well with shred sunder. This is a good option to just like, you know, make the front line a little bit more squishy, but also relies on you having a really, really reliable board that takes a long time to kill. You need a really tanky board for this to be good. That's where it really shines, because you need to get that armor and magic reduction by having the fight last a certain amount of time. Crafting. whenever you capture complete item, gain 2 rerolls. I think econ is really important in this set. I think this is a solid, this one is situational, I would say. Excuse me. The main reason I say it's situational is just because it is related on you completing an item. Now, if you think about it, let's just try and math it out a little bit. If you are completing 3 item carry, 3 item tank, which is what the average case scenario is for most games, 3 item carry, 3 item tank, that is 6 items total. That means that you're getting 2 rerolls with 6 items. That's 6 times 2, right? So that's 12 rerolls, right? 12 rerolls around 24 gold. 24 gold in rolling is really powerful for a silver augment. So I think a lot of people will consider this to be A tier or even higher. It's quite good, and it's often slept upon because it seems like a little bit confusing. But if you think of it from that regard, it's quite good. And having the rerolls early is also really powerful. What I consider this, though, is that it really depends on when you get those item drops. There are some games where you do not get a lot of items on stage 2. And there's a lot of items that after Krugs, you still don't have a lot of items. You have maybe 1 or 2 completed items. At that point in time, this is very difficult to make use of, and it can be very awkward to play around. And especially if you don't have an item that you can make, it makes it a little bit harder to play around. Like, imagine if you start on stage 2, you get dropped 2 components, and they're not really components that you want to slam into an item instantly. Then you're not getting a reroll on stage 2. And then if you get to Krugs, you're eventually going to slam an item, but maybe you don't slam 2 items, maybe you only slam 1 item. Now you don't even have a lot of rerolls to use on your mid game to stabilize around, and you're kind of waiting until, like, middle of stage 3 before this actually has any value. That's why I put in B tier. I think it's a little bit situational. If I see this and I have a slammable item instantly, or if it's like Scuttle Puddle where there's lots of item drops, lots of component drops, or Loot Sub even, or something where I have a unit that drops extra components or something, of course, right? Any of those, much better, and I would definitely take it. But that's what I mean. You have to look first and then take. You can't just click it blindly, which is why I put in B tier. There are a lot of these augments, by the way. Critical success, I'm going to probably speed up a little bit. This one I think is in the same tier as backup bows. This one you want to put it on units that auto attack a lot. Auto attacks naturally crit, so if you pair that with crit gloves, then it's going to be good. So obviously that's great, but obviously you get a sparring gloves and then you gain 2 more, which can give you a free thieves gloves or a free crit build. I think this one's really widely applicable and really good. And I think that 3 components for a silver, you can think of it almost like Band of Thieves, but a little bit delayed. So you get the thieves, you get a glove earlier, but then you get a thieves gloves a little bit later, which is pretty solid. The 320 doesn't seem too bad, but you need to have a unit that auto attacks, right? You can't just put it on a unit that's a crit unit, right? That just like ults 1 time and crits once. You need to put it on like a unit with a Gwinsu, right? That type of unit, because every time they attack, they have a chance of critting. And if you give them some crit items, you make them more consistent, you'll cash it out in a very little amount of time, so long as you have an auto attacker. Delayed start, S tier for sure. This one, it sells your whole board and gives you 4 upgraded 2-star 1-cost champions. Very, very powerful because it basically gives you an opener for free. In this game mode, where you want to try and make it to high level and play around high-cost units, having an upgraded board and being able to make econ, because it sells your board and bench, basically allows you to play around 3 or 4 upgraded 1-cost units, which I think are all really solid. There's not many of them that are really bad. A lot of them are very strong, even without synergies and traits. They just do their job pretty well. That allows you to have an easy or well-played stage 2 a lot of the time into stage 3 as well, because those 1-costs are usually going to be your stage 2 and stage 3 units, and you can build your board around them. Additionally, it makes you make interest earlier. You make gold because you sell your board and bench. This basically gives you 12 gold worth of units that you can do whatever you want with them, and then it also allows you to play around the other units allows you to play around your gold that you have, that you can make interest and worry about it. Now, it disables your shop for 3 rounds, so it might be a little bit of a scary thing, but especially in this set where you want to have like an early advantage, so it allows you to more easily play around your stage 4 into level 9. I think it's really important to put it up here in S tier. Dummify turns your whole board into a target dummy. This works really well if you have some bruisers as well, because it scales their HP and could get you a lot of value. I think econ is really important in this set. I mentioned it lots of times in multiple of the other videos, but I think with Dummify especially, it's the time you take Dummify is if you have a lot of gold. That's basically the way it works. If you have an insane amount of gold and you can afford to take Dummify, then you take it, because by selling all of the units on your board and bench, it doesn't sell, you lose all of them into this dummy. You make a really strong and reliable frontline item or unit thing. But if you don't have enough econ to support that, you're basically losing all the gold that you have bought to put on your board and on your bench, which actually turns out to be a lot. Those are units that you're either going to have on your final board or you're going to sell. You have to now buy new units to replace those units. It's very expensive. So the only time you want to click it is if you're extremely rich. This is like a scuttle puddle thing, or you have a really good econ augment and you're win streaking or something. That's when it makes more sense. And then obviously if you can make it to the same late game board but you have a giant dummy, it works really well as a silver augment. Earth Axiom. Champions gain 30 armor and magic resist, and at 50% health they stun enemies. This one is pretty good. I don't think it's as good as Air Axiom, but I'll put it in B tier. I think that if you want to make like a really tanky frontline unit, it can work pretty well. You basically get a stun and a bunch of armor and magic resist, but it's only on one unit. So, you know, it has to be a unit that really likes these things. I think it's solid, but I don't think it's as like crazy as the ones that give you like the utility, right? Like the 30% sundering is a lot better in my opinion than something like Earth Axiom. Fish and Chopper, you gain a second copy of a champion on Carousel. This one's good, I think, if you're lose streaking. One part that's really good, basically for next 4 carousels, that includes like the later game carousels. When you get a second copy of the champion, if you have early pick, like if you're first pick on carousel, then you can get 2 copies of a 4 cost, 2 copies of a 5 cost, especially late game, and even early game you get 2 copies of a 2 cost or a 3 cost. That's where I really think it shines. Besides that, you can treat it kind of like a little bit like econ, because you basically get an extra copy of the unit that you can sell. It doesn't give you an extra copy of the component that would be broken, but it's pretty good. But like I said, usually you want to play it from like lower HP, which is a little bit riskier, but that allows you to, like, on stage 4 and stage 5 carousels, you can just like instantly teleport to a 2-star 5 cost or a 2-star 4 cost. The stage 3 carousel is good, right? Because stage 3 carousel, you can get 2-star 4 cost instantly. Not instantly, but you get 2 copies of a 4 cost, which gives you a really high chance of upgrading them. That's where it really shines. So that's where I would take it, is those spots. Like maybe I don't have a good opener, I'm prioritizing econ, maybe I play for lose streak early game, and then by stage 3 I get 2 copies of a 4 cost, and then early stage 4 I'm like well ahead of tempo, and then I could go like straight to 9, or I can like figure out what I'm doing with my board. Exiles I think is broken. I think this gives way too much value for what it is. Exiles, basically, if you read it, champions that start combat with no adjacent champions gain a 20% max health shield for 10 seconds. 20% max health shield is a massive amount of health, right? No matter what your unit is, or what your units are, 20%, if you take any average unit and they have like around 1,000 health, right? Even a 1 cost unit has like around 1,000 health starting, right? 20% of 1,000? That's like 200 health. And that's on like low cost random shitter units, right? It's not that bad of a thing. Like obviously if you're playing like a comp like Freljord, it's like a little bit awkward, but like it's not too difficult to just space them out a little bit. And a lot of matchups spacing them out isn't even that much of a grief, because you can pretty easily just like do these types of placements and fit in everybody, right? There's like a way to just do it. It's not too bad, not too big of an issue, right? For the downside, obviously you can do it like this, excuse me, right? You can fit in as many units as you need. Sorry, this guy over here. Then you can also like move them all over one, I believe. Like you can do like this. I forget. Excuse me. I messed it up. Like this, but you can also move them over one hex so that this goes in the corner, right? Like it's totally fine. But either way, this isn't that much of a downside, right? This positioning isn't that bad, because if you have your units split in the front row, these frontline units will walk up anyways. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that big of a grief. Like, positioning like this versus like this isn't that much of a problem when you have like some reliable tanks and front lines. The back line might be a little bit goofy, but you can actually position it a little bit better. You can do like this, right? Right? And it's equally, and then you have your backline units in the corner. So it's not that big of an issue. But 20% is massive. Now it's only for 10 seconds, but that's enough, right? 20% health shield on whole board for 10 seconds for a silver. That is like giving easily thousands of HP to your board for a silver augment. It is broken. It is very strong. It's one of the strongest combats in the game. Easily, right? This is like, you know, if you have like even a units that have higher HP, like a bruiser unit with like 4,000 HP, you're getting like what? You're getting like 800 HP on a unit. You're literally getting a Warmogs for 10 seconds. Now, the 10 seconds, you might look at it and be like, well, after 10 seconds, you get nothing. But it's like, if you can just last in the first 10 seconds that your units are tanky and hard to kill, that will sway the fight. That will dictate the pace of the fight very easily. 10 seconds is a long time. Most fights at the end of the game last only like 15-20 seconds at most. So if you're able to absorb 20% damage or 20% of your health as damage for 10 seconds, that's enough, right? The shield will probably expire. Sorry, you'll probably lose the shield, like you'll lose the HP before the 10 seconds even expires. It's very good. I don't know how else to explain it. It's hard to math it out, but like do it yourself. Like look at your board and then calculate, oh, if my unit had 20% more health, would that unit live how much longer? It's like quite literally saying my whole board's gonna live 20% longer, right? It's actually very, very good. And I think that it might be slept upon. This is like an instant click. If you don't need econ and you don't need like items or something, if you're looking for combat, I would not click something over this almost ever. I would always click that. But that's a me thing, personally. Extra buckles. I put this one here. I think the absorbing damage is a little bit awkward. Sometimes your units die too fast. So 75,000 damage is actually quite a bit. Because like even if you have like 5 or 6 units on your board, you might not be able to proc it very easily. Because this one, by absorbing damage, it also means the fights have to last a certain amount of time. But 3 belts is really good. It would be up here with the bows and the critical success. I just think it's a little bit harder to proc, so I put in B tier. Eye for an eye. These ones I put up here. I'll put them in A tier. These are really good value for a silver. They give you 3 components. 3 components for a silver. They rely on ally champions dying, but that actually happens pretty easily. 15 ally champions death is not too difficult to proc. So a lot of times you will get your 3 components by the time you get to stage 4, which is on pace, on tempo with what you want to have in the game of TFT. Very solid. A lot of times I put these in S tier, but I want to put these ones a little bit of a tier above, so we'll put them in A tier. Find your center. This one gives you HP and damage amp, so if you're playing like a melee style carry in the front line, this could be really good, but it forces them in the center, which is a little bit awkward. I think it obviously can work really well with a lot of the high cap, high cost units, like, you know, put this on a Shyvana, or put this on like a Fiddlesticks, or put this on like a Thresh, or a lot of those other units that are like frontline tanky, do a lot of damage. But obviously it requires you to have a board that plays your main carry as a melee carry, so I put in B tier, as situational. Fire Axiom, same as Air Axiom, this one provides anti-heal. So I put it up here. If you need anti-heal, really solid. It gives attack damage and ability power 15%. If you have a unit that scales off both, really, really good. Definitely put in A tier. Firesale, this is econ. It's a solid econ. I'll put in A tier. You get 1 to 3 gold per round. I think it works out to be pretty good. It averages like around 2 gold-ish over the course of the game. For a silver, really solid. Econ, really important in this set. Econ's really important. It's hard to get to level 8, and a lot of the units are really expensive that you want to play around. 5 cost and 4 cost units. You need the gold, you need the econ. Definitely up there in A. Flowing tiers. This one I think isn't that hard to proc. I put it in A tier as well. This one's good if you start with invokers. And getting many tiers on invokers, really, really strong. I think this one's really solid, pretty easy to proc. It does seem like a high mana threshold, but if you have units like invokers that are just casting a huge amount of times within a driven fight, it's actually pretty reliable to get this to pop off. Tiers are also really, really strong because there's a lot of units that love to have mana generation. Lots of units have really powerful ults, especially if you're playing around the 4 and 5 costs. I think tiers are some of the more flexible items as well. So definitely an A tier. I think it's one of the easier ones to proc, and it's also really, really flexible, really, really good for a lot of different boards. Focus Fire. Your team gains 5 attack damage every 5 seconds. They gain 5% more. I think this one's a little bit slow in some fights. I think that it doesn't give that much value because it's every 5 seconds. I think after 10 seconds, you have 15 attack damage, right? Because you start with 5, then 5 and 5. So 10 seconds, it's pretty good. Like, it's decent stats. But you need to be playing a comp that predominantly wants attack damage. And you also want to be playing a comp that can stall out long enough for this to work. I think some of the Yunara comps that works pretty well with if you're like scaling her as an auto attacker. But in general, I find that's a little bit slow, right? If it was like every 4 seconds, I think this would be broken. But it's 5 seconds. It's like on that teetering edge of like situational is where I would put it. Glass Cannon, backline units gain damage amp, right? They start at 80% health, but gain 17% damage amp. The health isn't that big of a downside. 17% damage amp is massive. But I definitely put it in B tier because it's a situational thing because it needs your units to be backline. Sometimes you don't have those backline units, but it is something that's really strong. 17% damage amp, very, very powerful. That's like as much as Know Your Enemy, which is a gold augment. Now, Know Your Enemy obviously gives it to like your whole board, so it's like better because it's like regardless of the units and your front line gets it as well. This one, it could be a little bit awkward. especially if you're not playing a lot of backline units that can make good use of it. And also, if you're playing against boards that have really big AoE, or have units that can snipe the backline, then you can run into a situation where this might grief your units because they might die, right? Like, imagine if somebody has a fizz and you're starting at 80% health, GG. You know, it's like, that's where you have to critically think a little bit about it. But stats-wise, like numbers-wise, numerically, like in a vacuum, it's up here. For sure, for sure, for sure. Easily. The numbers, up here. But you still have to think about it. So B tier, right? B tier, situational. You have to, like, think about, do I have units that can support it? Do I have enough units in the backline, etc. Right? If you can just, like, take this and put every unit in the backline and position doesn't matter, and the enemy board doesn't have AoE, then it's up here. But because you have to, like, there's situations where this might grief you, you have to actually make sure that you're not going to get griefed. Good for something, S tier. This gives a lot of gold. It doesn't seem like it. 50% chance of dropping gold if you have no item. It is pretty powerful. You get on average 2 to 3 gold over the course of the game with this. A lot of times you're not trying to split up your items. You're trying to itemize specifically one tank, one carry, and focus all your items on those units anyways. So it's not even that bad. Gives you value the whole game. And I think that, like, this is the rumor has it, but the odds are actually better than 50% is what I've heard. I've heard that to make it feel good, the odds are a little bit better than 50, so it's not even like a pure 50-50 if you try and math it out. Now, obviously, that's rumor has it. It's not fully confirmed. If you find that it's fully confirmed, then by all means, but that's what I've heard from multiple sources. Now, obviously, it might just be bullshit, but either way, even if it's not actually better than 50%, this is a lot of gold. Econ, very important in this set. The one thing, if you can find an econ augment, you take it almost always. It is so powerful because you're playing around expensive units and you have to level. It is hard to hit those high caps unless you have a good amount of econ as a foundation. So good for something, very powerful. Healing orbs, I'll put it here. It gives you 220 health, nearest allies healed whenever an enemy dies. This could be really good in certain spots, especially if you're playing like a solo tank and, like, you know, you're trying to, like, you know, kill a bunch of units while that tank kind of heals everything. Like, it's solid. Some melee carries this can be good on. The problem is I think this is affected by anti-heal as well because it heals them. It doesn't, like, give them like a shield or something like that. So a lot of times it can be like a little bit of a grief and it's not as strong as some of the other options, right? If you think of it this way, you need an enemy to die to heal 220 health. Exiles just gives your whole board more than 220 health each instantly, right? It's like, you know, this could give as much as 800 health onto some units very easily. Like, not even, like, it's not even an exaggeration. Just like like a Braum has like 3,500 health, like with normal items. You know what I mean? An Ornn has like 7,000 health if you give him an artifact, right? Like, compared to this, it's like, that's what I mean. There's like a clear divide. That it's not as strong. Iron assets, component anvil and 3 gold. B tier. If it helps you to set up econ early, 3 gold is 3 gold. But it's a component anvil, so you can make an item. Really good if you're trying to make some items and streak early. And then obviously the 3 gold to make interest. Item grab bag. This is what I mean by, like, what I think a silver augment is. 2 components or a completed item. It's random, but it's a completed item. You can't go wrong. If you need an item, you click it. It's just like, that's just how it is. It's one of those options. Late game specialist, there is a lot of fast 9 situations. So late game specialist, usually I put over here because it's hard to, like, start a game and say to yourself, I'm gonna go level 9, because basically you're playing down a silver augment for the entire game because you're trying to go level 9. In those regards, I say that usually I put this in C tier as situational. Right now, having gold on level 9 is so important, and basically, like, it dictates a lot of how people optimize their boards because of the way the game is balanced around 4 costs and 5 costs. I think having this as a silver with 36 gold is pretty solid. Now, obviously, are there better options? For sure. You can easily put this here. You can easily put this here. I don't think it's up here because there's obviously the downside of, like, you know, you're down a silver augment for most of the game. Personally, I teeter between it being here and here, right? I would probably click this if I didn't have something else that was better, like to make me stronger at the given moment. But it's like, it's hard for me to give that. I don't want to give, my advice isn't to just, like, degenerately click this and then just do nothing and go 9 and hit all the 5 costs and win. It's still a very risky strategy. So I think it has its use cases. I think on this set in particular, it's really strong because it's a very reliable way to get to level 9 and have gold to roll to upgrade your units. But it's a little bit risky. So I'm going to put it in here as the more sometimes food. But you know what? It's up to you, right? If you want to put it here, or if you want to put it here, I don't even disagree with you, right? to each their own. That's fine, right? That's a matter of opinion. Me personally, I would rather have, like, if I have this versus an econ augment or something like good for something, right? I would take, like, you know, if we're comparing these two, I would take good for something 10 out of 10 times. It wouldn't even be close. I would never even consider it, right? Because the econ that I would make from good for something with interest compounding would equal this gold anyways, right? Like, it would equal the same amount of gold, except I'm not down an augment. I can play my mid game a little bit easier with this, right? So then I would go here. It's like, will I take this over any of these? Well, it's like, it depends. If I don't have a spot where I can play around items, then I will take this one, right? And then these ones, this is kind of where it gets close. That's why I mean it's like somewhere here or here for me. But I'll put it, you know, I'll put it here. You know, I'll put it here. I'll put it here to fill out the C. We need some more C's here. But it's very close to B. Like I said, it can be anything. Latent Forge, I think, is over here. I don't think the artifacts are that crazy just yet. When artifacts are really broken or there's comps that really abuse artifacts, this becomes a lot better. 8-player combats, you have to wait a long time to get one. So you're kind of hoping that you hit something cool. Artifact Anvil obviously could be really powerful late game, but it's just a little bit awkward sometimes, so I'll put in B. Leap of Faith is the Alawi one. I'm going to put in the unranked tier. D tier isn't bad. D tier is just unranked. This one is the Alawi Hero Augment. I played it. There's actually a game of me playing it on PBE. So it's on my VOD channel. You can check it out. But basically, I think that if you have a Bilgewater spot early, you can click this and it's probably like here or here. Right? Because you get the Alawis for free with the Bilgewater shops. If you don't have a Bilgewater opener, I would never click it. So I care less about having Alawi. I care more about having like Twisted Fate, Gangplank, Nautilus. If I have 3 Bilgewater on stage 2, then I'll take this. If I don't have 3 Bilgewater on stage 2, I am not clicking this a single goddamn time, right? It's not worth it. And even then, it's a little bit risky because you're building like melee AD items on the Alawi. So it's a little bit awkward because she falls off really hard late game, is what I found. But obviously back then I wasn't buying a lot of the Bilgewater items. I was buying more of the stat buffs. So I think if you buy Bilgewater items, that's why I say it can be up here. Because this, with buying only Bilgewater items to itemize the Alawi and then moving those items onto another unit late game, is actually pretty solid. Because you can just play Alawi and drop down to legendaries later, and you have like a really strong mid-game carry. Alright, lineup. Team gets 2 armor badges for each ally that starts in the front 2 rows. Similar to the other one, I put it here. I think Boxing Class is a little bit better for the value that it gives you, because this one gives you a total of 14 armor and magic resist for your whole team, which isn't that much. It's quite big, but it's like the equivalent of like 2 defender. I think this one's like a lot better because it gives you like the value of like almost twice as much as 2 bruiser. You know what I mean? I think it's just a little bit more stats. Lunch money, situational. I only take this if I have a really, really strong board. It's similar to like Called Shot. You get a lot of gold if you're really strong, but if you're not, it's kind of useless. So I'll put in that C tier, which is more situational. C for situational. I know it doesn't start with a C, I'm just joking, but you know what I mean. Makeshift armor. I think this is S tier. I think this is S tier, right? Remember we just talked about lineup? It gives 12 total armor and mag resist to all of your your team. This now doesn't give it to units with items, so it doesn't stack on like your main carry, main tank. However, every other unit that doesn't have items is getting 30 armor and magic resist. That is a lot. You can actually take this and forego making tank items for much of your game, right? If you have a game where you don't have tank items, this is your tank items. 30 armor and magic resist. It's a lot. It's actually a lot. And like if you make it to high cap boards or really expensive boards, this actually scales you really well. It makes your whole board extremely tanky. You're usually only going to itemize 1 tank, 1 carry, and maybe in like the most absurd cases, you're going to have 2 tanks, 2 carries. Half your board is getting 30 armor and 30 magic resist. It makes all of your other shitter units, all of your unitemized units, actual threats. It is so much armor and magic resist. It has no doubt, like all you have to, you're not itemizing them anyways. It just makes you like have a lot of really tanky target dummies. That's the way you can look at it. It is very, very strong. I don't know why it's 30, by the way. I feel like it's going to get nerfed, but maybe I'm just like, maybe I'm dumb and I'm overvaluating it. But I feel like this one's one of those ones where it's like Exiles. Like you just see that and you're like, yeah, that is one of the most solid options for a combat. Like obviously the only time I skip these is when I need econ or something else that's more important at the time. But these are just, it's just good. That's just solid, especially early game. Like early game, imagine like you start the game off, you don't have 3 items on anybody. You have like 5 shitter units with no items. You just give them all 30 armor, 30 magic resist. That's insane. It's not even like one or the other, it's both. That's a lot. It just is. I don't know what to tell you. I think it's S tier for sure. Misconnections, econ, and a lot of times to complete 3-star 1 cost, this can be really good. It's basically like around like 20-ish gold. It's solid, but you get it later in the game, so you know. On a roll, whenever you start up a champion that you fielded last combat, gain 2 shop rerolls. This could be a lot, but not really. I think this one's a little bit awkward. I'm going to put in B tier though. But basically the rerolls could be really strong. 2 free shop rerolls is really powerful. If you think about like the board that you're playing, it's just like, how do I phrase it? Because it has to be a champion that you fielded last combat. So the problem with on a roll is that if you're rolling for like your main units, like let's say you're playing a level 8 board and you upgrade your unit like that turn, you don't get the shop rerolls. So it's like a little bit awkward. It's kind of like you want to have a 1-star unit 1 turn, then you want to roll the next turn for the upgrade. It's like has a little bit of a tempo to it where it could be like a little bit awkward where the augment kind of doesn't do that much because like the units that you're playing, like you upgrade them while you're putting them in, you know. That's what, like, this is good for like gaining shop rerolls in your like early mid game and stuff. And I think the best way to use this is actually like, you know, how I said, you play a unit, then you use the free shop rerolls to try and upgrade it like the next turn or so. Then you get more shop rerolls and you keep using them. Like you don't use it to bank rerolls, but instead you use it to like fully upgrade your board. And then eventually when you have a fully upgraded board, you use that tempo to kind of make you do really well. But like I said, these are all more experimental things. You could just use it to bank a bunch of shop rerolls you can use on your roll down whenever you're playing your other units. That's also fine. But I think it's B tier. I think it's a little bit harder to get use out of this just because you need to have like that sort of cadence to your upgrades, if that makes sense. 125 gives you a 5 cost. Sometimes you can just bail yourself out with this component, 2 gold and a 5 cost. If not, it's just a little bit of gold to help you out. 1-2s, 3s, econ or playing around units, solid option. 2 2-cost champions, 1 1-cost, 1 3-cost. Pandora's items, I think this is too slow. I put in C tier. Every time I say this, there's gonna be somebody that's gonna argue with me. I do not give a shit. Okay, I get paid like a quarter minimum wage to make these videos, basically, right? I'm not leaking anything, right? It is not worth my time to have an argument with anybody about this shit. Basically the way I look at Pandora's is this: when you're really comfortable with your items, when you get better at the game, or not better, I don't want to make it like a rude thing. How do I phrase this? When you are comfortable with the game and comfortable with your items, and you're not like learning the game still, the perfect items and the perfect slams don't really matter. What matters is slamming the items that make the most sense at the given time, because you care about the exact moment you slam the items, right? It's not about like, oh, I want to make items later. Oh, I want to do this later. No, it's like, I want to make items right now because I need to be strong now. You're not waiting for items to rotate on your bench. You are making what makes sense. Sometimes you can get your items griefed. That's where Pandora's make sense, right? Pandora's, if you have bad items, it can be like insurance, right? But a lot of times you click Pandora's and you're trying to make like the perfect items on the perfect units to optimize your damage. And that's not the case, because the time that you're waiting for your perfect items doesn't offset the fact that like you're losing HP and you're losing a lot of tempo those rounds. And then by the time you have perfect items, it doesn't matter that you have perfect items because you're so far behind on HP, you just get outcapped by somebody anyways and just lose the game anyways. That's what usually happens with Pandora's, in my opinion. And I find that I don't need to shift my components around to make good items all the time. Now, obviously, it's a good bailout. If you are playing towards a certain unit and you just get really bad component drops because there is variance in TFT, Pandora's helps you to not have that variance. Excuse me. But for a silver augment, it gives you 1 component. Now, I'm talking about how it's really bad. I usually put in C tier. However, it is technically, I will agree with everybody that it is a B tier augment. It is a situational augment. Now, it gives you 1 component, which is on par with a lot of other silvers, and Pandora's, specifically the effect of Pandora's, for a silver augment is really powerful, because the prismatic and the gold versions of this have the same effect, essentially. So you're getting a very powerful effect of being able to switch your components around, while also being a silver augment. And silver augments, the weakest silver versus the strongest silver, there's not as much of a difference in like golden prismatics, for example. Because like, you know, if you have Pandora's and you have healing orbs, it's like the combat that you get from healing orbs is so shitty sometimes that Pandora's is going to make a lot of sense. It's very generic. That's the thing about it that's good. Now, like I said, I don't personally like it. I think that it's way overrated in terms of its effect that it gives. It is a lot better in reroll meta. If you're playing reroll lines and you need specific items, then it's a lot better. Of course, I understand that. If you're playing flexibly and you're playing what you can hit and you're playing around the components that you have, you don't need to change your components that often, so it ends up somewhere around here, right? Now, like I said, I'm not gonna devalue it to put it like all the way here or here and say it's dog shit. I'm just saying, like, obviously, it's very obvious what the pluses are of it. What I'm trying to say is I'm explaining why it's not here and why it's not here, right? It's here. And I think that's very fair. It's situationally very good. It's not a click all the time. It's not a click instantly. It's not broken. It doesn't give you insane combat. But it's something that, given the circumstances, it could be very good. But a lot of times, it's going to be meh. And you just have to decide if it's meh or if it's good. And it depends on your spot. A lot of times, it really, really depends on your spot. Times when Pandoras are really good, you already have upgraded units. You have really powerful units. Maybe you have a 2-star 3 cost. You have something that is really powerful. And you want to just slightly adjust your items to make that work out. Pandora's is not good if you're trying to reroll all your items into something else, right? It's good if you have to reroll 1 or 2 components, right? So you're already slamming items and you have maybe 1 component that's sitting on your bench anyways, and you roll that into a better component to make your good items. That's where it's really good. Patience of Virtue, broken. I don't know how they didn't nerf this yet. One of the best econs for a silver. 2 free rerolls each round. 2 free rerolls. That's 4 gold for a silver. Now, you don't have to buy a champion. That makes sense. But a lot of times when you're playing TFT, you're rolling on specific rounds anyways, right? If you roll, you're not rolling like once per turn. You're rolling on a turn to either spike or to save gold later. So with Patience of Virtue, you basically just set yourself up. You don't buy anything, and then as soon as you have to buy something, you just use all your free rerolls, buy everything that you have to buy to upgrade everything, and then you move on. It is very powerful. 4 gold per round, because it's 2 free rerolls, is insane. Especially in a meta where you really, really, really care about econ. You really want to play around those high cost units, those 4 costs, those 5 costs. Saving econ any way possible is insane. 4 gold for a silver. Every other econ, not even close. This is like as powerful as like many of the gold level of econ generation, right? Because it's 4 gold. Now, obviously, like I said, there is the downside. You cannot buy champions. So there are some situations where this could be a little bit of a grief. A lot of times, Patience of Virtue forces you to lose streak, which is its own problem, its own right. But what I would recommend is that a lot of times you lose streak, generate value with Patience of Virtue, then use that value to spike really hard on stage 3, then don't have to spend your gold because you reroll with the Patience of Virtue rerolls that you get, and you can re-establish your rerolls and get to stage 4, use all your rolls, upgrade all your units, and then once again, re-establish your things. You do it in like kind of cycles. Like at the start of each stage, you decide if you're going to roll or not, to spike or not. Really insane. It's a lot of value for what it is. This is one of those ones that you very rarely pass on, in my opinion. Placebo, 8 gold, and then Placebo Plus is 14 gold. If you really need gold, you take these. Otherwise, they're pretty mid. Preparation, this one's hard to judge because it's like, you know, 30 health, 2% attack damage, 2% ability power, but your units have to be on the bench. It's a lot of stats. A lot of times I've put preparation up here and up here, but I think right now there's a lot of flexibility in the set. When the set's more flexible, preparation is a little bit worse because a lot of times you have to, like, you know, if it's reroll, it's obviously really good because you have the units on your bench anyways. If you're playing specific boards that you know these are going to be your late game units, it makes sense because you can stack them. You can stack them up, excuse me. It gives a lot of stats, right? 30 health up to 4 times is what, like 120 health, and then 8 attack damage, 8 ability power. It's a lot of stats, right? And then you can apply that to your whole board. The problem is a lot of times, like, you're slotting in 5 costs and you don't have time to prepare, right? You do a roll down, you're playing them on your board, you're not prepping them. So like late game, it can be really awkward to get like the stats out of this. That's why I put in B tier for this set, because the more flexible you are, the harder it is to make use of this. Recombob, I think it's kind of a meme, but in some cases really good. I like to click this if I have a 4 cost or a 2-star 3 cost. I click it way too much. I've griefed some games clicking it. If you can get an early 5 cost, it gives you a lot of direction and stability. A lot of them are really powerful as 1-stars. So I would definitely click it if I have a 4 cost unit on my board. Or if I have a 2-star 3 cost, that I can just have a 2-star 4 cost and then just make that my game plan. I think those are the cases where it's like a lot better. Other than that, I think it's a meme, right? If you have just a 3 cost or just a 2 costs or 1 cost, I don't think it's worthwhile. So it's more in the situational. Restart mission, this is really good. It can just remake your board. If you have a bad board and you want to just like play around some units, it's a lot of gold, right? 2-star 3 costs is just like 16 gold right there. 3 2-star 2 costs, it's insane. It's actually really powerful. in a set like this where you really want to play around your mid game, I actually put in A tier. Because I think that there's a lot of value you can get off clicking this. Even if you're not playing it for the units, it does remove all your champions. So the times you don't want to click it is if you already have a board that's really stable, or if you have a lot of gold investment on your board already. But basically this gives you like, these are like 20 plus gold worth of units. And you can play around them. And you have like a lot of options where you can like easily like, you know, make a very strong board. So I definitely consider it to be really good. Risky moves, I put in B tier. I don't like dropping too low on health. You lose health and you gain 30 gold after 7 player combats. It is a lot of gold, but it's not like broken. Even though it is a really large amount of gold for a silver, the 20 health is pretty substantial. I think you can lose games off that 20 health because it's really hard to reach those high caps when you don't have a lot of HP. So I put in B tier. More situational. Rolling for days, I think it got nerfed, right? Or did it get buffed? It wasn't 10 before. I don't remember it being 10. Wasn't it 9? I don't remember. This is a lot of gold. It's basically like 20 gold in rerolls. Can't go wrong. But I'll put it in B tier. I don't think it's in A tier. Second wind. I think this one's really solid. One of the better combats. A tier for sure. 10 seconds. Your team heals 40% of their missing health. It's a lot of health that it heals for a silver. Silver Destiny. There's some of these you can grief, but they do establish econ. I'm going to put them in A tier. I don't think you can really get griefed too hard by the silver augments. But I think that they're pretty solid in giving you the 4 gold. Actually, 2 gold. I think it's not as much as it used to be. I'm going to move them down. I think Silver Destiny Plus is a little bit better. The only thing you can hit that's bad is Dummify. But Silver Destiny Regular, you can hit the hero augments, which just really feels bad. Silver Spoon, gain some XP. Solid option if you need to. Slice of Life, this gives you copies of 5 cost, but it's a little bit slow. I don't think it's broken, but I think it's quite good. I'm going to put in A tier. Because it gives you because especially in a set that's a little bit more flexible, you basically get some free copies of 4 cost and free copies of 5 cost, and can really help your game plan for a silver. I think it's pretty solid, A tier. Slightly magic roll, I think this one's broken, S tier. I was looking at the loot table. I clicked this today for the first time. It gives a lot of fucking value for a silver, right? This is the loot table, by the way. So it can give you 6 free rerolls, which is an insane amount of rerolls for like, this is a stage 2 augment, by the way, right? This is like, you get this on 2-1. So on 2-1, you can get 6 free rerolls, which is a lot. A 2 cost unit upgraded, which is a lot. 160 HP whole board, solid, right? 10 gold, which is just insane for a silver on 2-1, right? Even Placebo, right? Compared to Placebo's only 8 gold on 2-1, right? Like, compare silver to silver, right? 8 gold. All of these are great. Full item and reforger, so you get a full item and a reforger. It's literally a better version of this item grab bag. Quite literally, it's just a better version of that. And then a spat and component. So a spat, you don't even have to worry about the fucking reforger thing. You can make whatever you want. It's literally like a 10 times better version of branching out. Every single thing that it can give you is good. All of these. It's just all good, right? And it's on stage 2. I don't know what to tell you. I think it's broken. I think I'm gonna click this every time I see it. That's my beat. Like, maybe I'm wrong for that. Maybe I'm stupid for that. I don't know. I think it's good. I think it's one of the best ones. Small grab bag. 2 random item components. This is what I mean by a silver augment. I think silver augment 2 components, really solid. You can make the item here, so it's a little bit better than grab bag, but I don't think it's in that A tier. It doesn't give 3 components. Spoils of War, situational, C tier. The loot is so bad for this as well. A lot of times it was good with reroll, but I don't think it's worthwhile. I would often not take it. It might even be worse than some of those other ones. Stand United, it gives a good amount of stats. If you play a board that has a lot of traits, you get attack damage and ability power for each trait active. Survivor, this one's going to be hard to discuss. So, one thing about all of these is that I think Survivor is still here. Survivor, this set, is a lot better than it was in previous sets. You know why? It gives 4 starting gold. The 4 starting gold makes this arguably up here. Because the 4 gold, even if you don't cash out Survivor easily, it does help to establish your econ pretty nicely. Now, the thing is, this augment does absolutely nothing unless 3 players die. Which, you know, you're playing down an augment for much of the game. So it's a little bit of a gambit. And you never know how the game's going to go. So I put in the same category as like called shot, late game specialist, like all of these. It's like situational, right? You could click them. It might be the thing that wins you the game, but it's not something I'm clicking very often. Table scraps, next 2 carousels, gain a champion and one of the items that wasn't taken. It basically works out to be 2 components and some extra gold. I think it's really solid. If you're lose streaking, it's a lot better because you get the higher cost units. Team building, lesser dupe to play around. Teaming up, 2 random 3-cost champions. You can use it for like extra gold, but it's pretty solid and you can play around them potentially. Titanic Titan, lose streak gives you a bunch of HP, which can help you out quite a bit, but doesn't really give you much combat. Trials of Twilight, this is not a silver augment. I'm pretty sure this is a gold augment, so I'm gonna skip it. Twin Guardians, if you have exactly 2 allies in your first row, grant them 40 armor and 40 magic resist. This only gives it to 2 units, but I think it's really solid. I'm going to put in A tier. It does grief your positioning a little bit, but 2 allies in your front row isn't as bad as 1 ally in your front row, because you can still prevent yourself from getting wrapped, right? You can still put 2 units like this, right, semi-spaced out, and then put your other tanks like here so that they walk up, you know what I mean? Like you can do something like this, where then these units will walk up here, here, and here. So it's not that big of an issue to have 2 frontline units, but it does make it so you're not going to get wrapped, right? 1 frontline unit is often a little bit scary because like you can have like awkward spots where they take too much aggro. But with 2 units, you can actually split the aggro pretty well. And 40 armor on both of these is pretty substantial for a silver. I just don't know how much better it is than Makeshift armor. It's not better than Makeshift for sure, because Makeshift is 30 on multiple units. You get more value off of this. I think that because you can put on your main tanks, I like it a lot. So I put in A tier. I think it is pretty solid, right? For a silver, 40 armor, 40 magic is pretty massive. Water Axiom. This is the one that shreds. I think it's A tier for sure. This gives 3 mana regen. I think this one might actually be broken, by the way. It might be up in an S tier, but I'm going to put it with these ones just to be, like, you know, cohesive, right? But 3 mana regen I think is better than 25% attack speed, and it's better than 15 AD and AP. 3 mana gen is fucking insane, especially on a unit that wants to do AP because it's gonna shred. 3 mana regen is as much mana regen as an adaptive helm. Like, are we kidding? Like, what are we talking about here? That is insane. That is a lot of value. Giving 3 mana regen to 1 unit? Are we kidding? This is actually like broken. But like I said, to be similar to the other ones, A tier. I think that's gonna get nerfed for sure. I think it's getting nerfed for 2 for sure. But we'll see. If it gets nerfed to 2, I called it. Gain a Wood Edge champions within gain 15% max health. After combat, they gain 40% health. This is really good to scale somebody pretty effectively. I don't know if it's A tier because I think it's situational. If you have like a low, like usually like you're taking this on stage 2. So it has to be like a reroll line or a low cost units you're playing around. And there's not a lot of those that I think are really common to be played around. So I'm actually going to put it over here. Which it may be a little bit of a crazy thing to say, but I think it's just like, you know, if you have a Scion, obviously, or you have like, you know, a reroll line that you're playing like a Nico early and you're playing Ixtal reroll, obviously it's going to be a lot better, but I would put in B tier because you need to have that reroll line. Anyways, the only thing I might want to move is this one actually. Restart mission. Because I think the selling is a little bit situational now that I think about it. Of these other ones, I kind of like where I put everything. I think these ones are clearly the above on all else best silver augments, but I might be like, you know, it might be a bit of opinion on the way that I play the game, where I tend to like value early econ a lot more, and I tend to value team-wide buffs really heavily. These ones I think are all solid A tier options. These ones are all good, but situational. I think the silver augments, by the way, are pretty well balanced across the board. Making a tier list like this is very disingenuous to like how TFT is actually played. I want to make that very clear because a lot of people, you know, you'll look at this and you'll think, oh, I always click this or I always click this. There are times where I might click one of these C tier augments over something of these A tier augments, or something that I click a B tier augment over an S tier augment, because it's very situational to the spot of your board and what makes the most sense for you at the given time in order to top 4. But what I'm saying is, when I make these tier lists, this is the general how I view them in terms of like if I'm ranking them against each other, which one am I taking more commonly. And I want to make that point very clear because I don't want people, every time I make one of these tier lists, there's some people that are like, these are super helpful, I like them, make more. So I make them just to appease the people because obviously, you know, as somebody who makes guides, if this is what you people want to see, I will do it to the best of my ability. And I'll try my best. And I'll put the effort in to learn the stuff and I'll tell you guys about it. And I'll give you guys my opinion on it. But if people like, you know, there are people that are going to look at this and they're going to be confused or not understand and be like, I always click this augment and I do well. Why do you click it? Why do you say not to click it? And it's like, I'm just like, I'm trying to say like which ones I think are more commonly good on your board type of thing. But anyways, always take what you need most, right? If you need econ, take econ. If you need combat, take combat. If you need items, take items. And don't worry about exactly how strong they are. Take the thing that makes the most sense for your board at the time. But anyways, thanks for watching. We'll do silver and prismatics sometime next week. So if you want to see those ones, make sure to stay tuned. Make sure to like and subscribe. Additionally, if anybody wants coaching for set 16, if you sign up for coaching, which is the prismatic tier member on this channel, you will get a free Poro holiday bundle. So a card and a handcrafted keychain that I made because I do art. So you can check it out. I made a post about it. I think if you end up, by the way, signing up, make sure to join Discord and DM me because I'll need to give you a coupon code to actually get the free keychain. Makes sense, right? Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great day and see you. Bye-bye.